they could do this, and they may choose to do this. We may blow up this nuclear reactor just to cause a radiation fallout that Russia has to deal with. The Ukrainian offensive is going poorly. And in case any of you are new to the show, I don't support the Russian invasion, but I also don't support the Ukrainian proxy war. I don't support funding and arming Nazis. I don't support the U.S. pushing us to the brink of nuclear war. I don't support any of that.
We can walk and chew gum the same time.
You can be opposed to all of that at the same time. However, that doesn't mean that I'm just going to parrot the garbage propaganda that comes out of the U.S. or other countries. So this is Zelensky saying that everyone should get ready because Russia is going to like blow up a nuclear reactor and just watch the radiation waft across Europe. Because the real reason Zelensky's saying this is because the Ukrainian offensive is not going well. Ukraine is very much struggling in this proxy war against Russia that the U.S. has funded to over $100 billion, but still not enough to defeat Russia. But the U.S. doesn't care because we will fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. And so we don't care who dies. But here is Zelensky saying, we've just got a report from our intelligence and security service, received information that Russia is considering a scenario of a terrorist attack on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
Nailed it.
I nailed, totally nailed it. Totally nailed it. Well, you know, I'm Ukrainian on my off days. A terrorist attack with radiation leakage. They have prepared everything for this. Unfortunately, I've repeatedly had to remind them or remind people that radiation has no state borders.
Them who?
Have you really had to repeatedly remind people? Oh, it doesn't. Oh, it doesn't have state borders. And who it will hit is determined only by the wind direction, which makes a lot of sense for Russia to do something where it may pour radiation into Russia. Like, this is the dumbest shit.
Well, you know, they did blow up their own pipeline, so they clearly don't care about destroying their own infrastructure and their people. I mean, they're that evil that they will radiate their own people just to fuck with Ukraine.
This is the dumbest shit. I think it's because they're getting ready to
well, obviously. And do you know what it reminds me of?
Something.
I can't remember his name or even exactly which year it was, but it was a couple years ago. And there was I can't remember if he was press secretary or who he was, but he was talking about these protests in Cuba that hadn't happened yet. And he was like, it was a press we would just like to let the Cuban people know that we stand with them on these upcoming protests.
Yep.
You're like, how did you know that there were going to be protests unless you're organizing them?
You're announcing a color revolution.
Yeah. Like, we're with you on these protests that we have absolutely
nothing to do with. They might be tomorrow. We just, like, and good on you for the thing that hasn't happened.
That's what this feels like to me.
I mean, it really seems like there's only two possibilities. One is that Ukraine's going to do this shit and just, and because they want NATO countries to get more involved. And so they want to do this and blame it on Russia. And let's keep in mind that Ukraine has done multiple attacks that they've blamed on Russia. There was the most recently the Kakhovka Dam, which we know it harmed Crimea, which is Russian right now. It flooded mainly Russian cultural areas. So it's harming Russians, and yet Ukraine tried to say Russia blew up their own dam. Nord Stream pipeline, which the U.S. did, you know, although even the U.S. has now said, so the U.S. version of it is not that the U.S. did it, but that Ukrainians did it. But either way, and it's obvious it's the U.S., but either way, still that's not Russia doing it, blowing up their own pipeline with Germany. And so throughout all this, Ukraine has been saying, oh, no, Russia blew up their own pipeline, right? So is the U.S. Then there was also the explosion on the Crimea bridge back in October 2022, last year, that Ukraine celebrated the explosion on the Crimea bridge and yet also claimed it was Russia. They were like,
but yay, they blew up the bridge we wanted them to blow up.
Yay, they blew up the bridge to their area, Crimea, and yay. I mean, they did it. But why did they do that to our bridge that we are very happy they did? It's total insanity. I mean, just complete, utter bullshit. And so Anyway, this is scary. Now, there is another possibility, which is not that Zelensky and Ukraine is getting ready to do this type of terrorist attack on a nuclear reactor, but that they are kind of signaling to Putin subtly or not so subtly that they could do this and they may choose to do this. We may blow up this nuclear reactor just to cause a radiation fallout that Russia has to deal with. Tough to say.
But that also, as he points out, a lot of other people would have to deal with too.
Yeah, all the NATO countries.
Like
Sweden, Finland, Denmark.
Yeah.
Russia, Belarus. All these countries that are Poland that are like, yeah, we don't want radioactive winds coming our way either. But, and, you know, then there's a third reason, which is to get NATO countries involved. Like, oh, shit, Russia might decide to irradiate the whole area. Let's go, let's join Ukraine in this fight.
Well, right, because there's been more of a pullback. Like, maybe we should just let go of the whole proxy war. It seems like Zelensky's getting more desperate and trying to figure out ways to ensure that, you know, Uncle Sam doesn't abandon him.